Good afternoon, guys. Firstly, hope you're all well and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another sit down chat. We have a lot to run through. So on my broadcast channel, if you're not already, where are you? I'm sorry. It's called GLJ Bulking Diaries on my Instagram, my profile. On there, basically, I'm posting different content. So it's running through like my advice, different parts of my kind of days. For example, I got my nails done the other day and I'm doing like lots of polls on there. I'm actually doing like some giveaways on there, but it's just not posted anywhere else. For example, this week that we're currently in, I've just done a giveaway for GYMSHARK just for being in the group chat. We have another giveaway coming up literally next Monday because there's something very exciting going on. So keep your eyes peeled on my broadcast channel. I'm really wanting to get back into my education content to help you guys obviously further with your goals. So last week, I did this here, which of course is top tips, how to kind of grow your glutes. In my broadcast channel, I actually put in there just a question box. I said, right, what are you struggling with? Tell me, whether that's bulking, whether that's cutting, whether that's nutrition, whether that's just life in general, tell me, and I'm going to go through like 5 to 10 of the struggles and questions, etc., and discuss this on YouTube. As always, if you enjoy the video, please hit the like button. That was a big fly. Did anybody else see that? Anyway, any obviously future uploads you want to see, pop them down below. But we're gonna get straight into it, okay? I have a variety of questions, so let's get into it. Now, we are going to start with, how do you avoid putting on too much belly fat when in a calorie surplus? I would say this is probably one of my most asked questions, like literally every time I bulk, okay? So, to put this in the quickest, simplest way possible, okay, you cannot spot reduce body fat. If you're going into a calorie surplus, you will gain body fat. Everybody kind of stores body fat in different areas. So as an example, like Harv, he stores more body fat around his lower back. I would say for myself, I do gain body fat in my midsection. It is inevitable. Everybody's very, very different. Like I just said, it does depend on the individual. But I think the biggest thing that I would take from my own journey is I always take my surplus with slow. My first ever surplus when I was 82 kilograms, if I think back to then, yes, I gained too much body fat. I didn't need to gain that much body fat. But of course, you also got to reflect on the fact that I had a time frame with obviously kind of competing, etc. Now with my most recent surpluses, I take them so slowly. I'm not rushing them. At the end of the day, this is a lifestyle, like it's not a competition. Slow and steady wins the race. Like if you follow me on Instagram, you should be already, you will see that with my surplus, I'm 12 weeks in and my calories have gone up by a couple of 100 calories. It's not drastic at all, like it's a very small increase. I'm 2 kilograms up in around about 12 weeks. My strength is its highest it has ever been. I'm probably in the best mental position as well, to be fair. But you can't say to your body, don't gain body fat in my midsection. Like it's physically impossible, okay? But what I would say you can do is take it slow. And that probably sounds really like, oh, is that it? And I know this is not what kind of majority of you want to hear, but you're doing it for a reason and you cannot spot where body fat goes. It's the same when you try and drop body fat. You can't spot where you drop body fat from first. Luna is literally sat right next to me watching me. So if you hear a yawn, it's Luna. Also as well, okay, I think alongside obviously surplus, you have to accept you will gain body fat. You can't spot reduce where body fat goes. But as you're kind of pushing up food, you actually need to make sure you're getting stronger and actually pushing into those sessions. Because if you're eating a calorie surplus, but your training is not on point, the intensity is not on point, and you're not progressively overloading, you won't build muscle. That's one of the key factors that I would say. Guys, I have to just show you Luna. Okay, wait. She's fast asleep. Anyway, let's carry on. Okay, next up, these are definitely like mingled in, I guess you could say. How to deal with body shape changing from cut to a bulk. Now, I would say the biggest factor here is accepting that there is going to be a change. I know you're probably thinking, what the hell? The reason I'm saying that is because you're doing it for a reason. I would encourage a phase of maintenance. Like I think that's very, very important for anybody to do, in all honesty. Of course, look, going from cutting to bulking, fantastic. Obviously you're building muscle, wonderful. There has to come a stage when you do have to maintain that physique and just actually be comfortable and be happy. So as an example, more towards the middle of last year, I was very much maintaining, okay? I stopped cutting, I then stepped away. Now there's a lot of things that went on, personal circumstances, moving house, like everything, honestly, it was crazy back end of last year. And I would say I maintained. So my point being was, I think everybody should have a phase where they are actually sitting at maintenance and actually enjoying maintaining your physique. And that's something I would encourage if you haven't already done, just so you can actually like enjoy what you've worked so hard for and actually see like the areas that you want to improve on, for example. But in terms of how to handle obviously going from one to the other, I think what you have to kind of bear in mind is, if we're referring to clothes as well, clothes are going to fit differently. Like if I think back to the time when I transitioned from obviously prep and I was sitting around 66 kilograms to then transitioning to 75 75, 76. That's 10 kilogram difference there. Now, if I look back to those photos, honestly, the clothes I had literally were hanging off of me. And I have dresses now that I wore in prep. They were honestly so baggy on me. Now they're so tight. And I think, look, don't try and fit into your clothes if they don't fit you any longer, because that's just demotivating. That's just not a nice feeling at the end of the day. The number on the scale, the number on a piece of clothing does not define you. Just wear what feels comfortable. For me, like, I now know as I've grown up and as I've matured, I very much prefer long clothes that actually fit me well, that fit nicely, but I'm not like a short skirt person, for example. It's just not me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So my point being there, wear clothes that make you feel comfortable. So if you're in a bulk, don't try and fit into your smaller clothes. If you don't fit into them, literally size up. So overall, I would say kind of transitioning obviously from one to the other, I think the biggest advice, like I mentioned, just to make sure you're appreciating obviously where you're at. I would also then say, right, you're doing it for a purpose. And I think myself back to the start of this year, I would say, like, I'd be looking at myself thinking, not that bothered, like I'm not feeling amazing. And I knew I wasn't feeling my most confident. But again, I wasn't prioritizing my goals. So I can't sit there and be like, I'm not feeling confident, but then also I'm not prioritizing my goals. It's very much kind of actually knowing that you are doing it for a reason, focus on that maintenance phase, and very much actually not trying to squeeze into clothes if they don't fit. Next question, managing sticking to a deficit when there is food/drinks event. So a couple of things you can do. First things first is planning in advance. So let's say, for example, you know you're kind of going out Saturday for some drinks, okay? And you say to yourself, right, I'm thinking I'm gonna have 6 vodkas and Diet Coke. You could loosely obviously plan this in advance. So for example, you think I could maybe handle 6 drinks. Realistically, I would kind of just look how many kind of calories to save there. So if it was myself, I'd probably think about kind of saving around 600 to 700 calories in total for around about 6 drinks. Obviously, you're never going to be 100% accurate, and at the end of the day, you can still make smart choices. So if I was to do that, obviously it depends what calorie goal you are on. Might be worth then considering saving, like calorie banking. So saving 100 calories from Monday to Friday. So that way then you've kind of banked those calories for that weekend. As I would always say, make sure it's not restrictive. If you're on a lower calorie point, don't go and save 500 calories. It's just per day. It's not sustainable. So if you are going out for a heavy night, maybe making that switch from wine to vodkas, like, or for example, cocktail to the white spirits, or even the cocktails, beers or wine to actually Prosecco or champagne, because obviously your Prosecco, champagnes, your white spirits, etc. are going to be lower in calories. So there's always going to have to be a little bit of compromise. If you're wanting to drop body fat and socialize, it is doable, but you've got to compromise to a degree. And also bear in mind your time frame. It will slow down progress. You are going to spend longer dieting. At the end of the day, as long as you're happy, that's the key focus. Please make sure you eat obviously enough before kind of drinking. Otherwise, that alcohol will hit you like a ton of bricks. That's not what we want. Calorie banking can work. Obviously, it does depend on the individual. If it was myself, let's imagine I'm on a slightly lower calorie point. What I would do is kind of calorie bank potentially on the day itself. I would potentially kind of consider pushing that first meal kind of slightly later back into the day. If I'm going out for dinner, maybe not drinks. Let's say I'm going for a Thai restaurant. What I would do is see if they have the calories on the menu. If they don't, okay, fine. Have a look on the internet or look on MyFitnessPal for something similar. It won't be 100% accurate, but it's better than nothing. And again, obviously when going out, maybe if your friends are having 3 courses, maybe you compromise a little bit, and instead of having 3 courses, you have 2 courses. Maybe I have a starter, maybe have it as fish, high in protein. Maybe you have a main, and then maybe you miss dessert, or maybe you share a dessert with whoever you're going with. So can you see how we're still being aware, still attempting to make some smart choices? I would also say, look, again, it depends on your relationship with kind of the scales and yourself, etc. But I would consider maybe weighing yourself a couple of times across that week before going out, because let's be realistic, when you get back the day after, your weight will have fluctuated, and it will, and that's absolutely fine, like that is expected. But if you have a couple of weigh-ins before actually going out, that way you can see where your weight is trending. So you see that how we're doing a couple of tactical things we can do to actually align with those goals. But again, being realistic, look, one day won't bring progress, and I can promise you that. Obviously, if it's a frequent occurrence, you do need to be realistic, and you need to be aware of your kind of time frame, etc. But have a little bit of compromise, but still have fun. Next up, we have tips on progressive overload, how it works, etc. Let's say I'm doing catapult bridges on the Smith machine. My rep range is 6 to 9, and I'm doing 180 kilograms. With progressive overload, in order to build muscle, what you want to be thinking about doing is thinking about either your reps, weight, the time under tension, the rest periods, etc. So rep range 6 to 9, we're doing obviously 180 kilograms, and I'm only hitting 6 reps. I would stick in that rep range the following week. So next week, I would try and aim for 7 or 8 reps. Okay, I'm still not hitting the top rep range. The week after, I will try and aim for 8 or 9 reps. Now, that week, I've hit my top rep range. So what do? Well, the week after, I then try and push that weight up, which is what I did, okay? So I was hitting 180 kilograms on my cast glute bridges on the Smith machine. So I then decided to kind of push that weight up to 190 kilograms. Now, to be fair, 10 kilograms, it could be kind of classed as a big jump, but I actually felt that I had the energy there and I could push up, okay? So I went up to 190. Now, I was doing 6 reps and I did 5. So what I've done this week, literally a couple of days ago, I actually stuck at that same weight at 190. Now, I increased my rep by 1. I managed to get 1 more extra rep. So the first set, I managed 7 reps. Then the second set, I managed 6 reps. So again, next week, I'm gonna stick at that weight and push again for more kind of reps if I can. Now, don't get me wrong, you can't always kind of get an extra rep or an extra weight. Maybe it's just a bad week. Some weeks you can't push up and that's okay. Just going in there with the intent of pushing more. What I would always say, on your phone, obviously if you have a coach by GLJ, look at that wink. Anyway, it's time for the point. On your phone, whether that be obviously with your coach, on your notes section, etc. Note down your lift. You need to be focusing on logging your data. You need to be logging those lifts, and that's what I do every single session. I log my lifts. Before I start a movement, I will always check what I did last week, so I can then set a mini goal in my brain. So that's what I did with my cast glute bridges. I was doing obviously 180, and I saw that I hit my top rep range last week, so I checked and went, okay, this week I'm gonna try and push 190. Same with my sumos, for example. Like I pushed that up recently and got 60 kilograms with the weight. The only reason, of course, kind of actually pushed for more is because I logged my lifts and I remembered what I did the week before, okay, by logging those lifts. That's a very vague explanation, I would say. I could go into so much detail, but obviously I don't want to bore you guys. But what I would kind of say with that progressive overload, looking to kind of give more into those sessions, looking for more reps, looking for more weight if you can. Of course, never compromise your tempo or your form though. And honestly, that is so important. Make sure that form is on point, because otherwise it's pointless. And that's really, really, really important, okay? Next up, the question is how to know whether to bulk or cut first. First things first, I would say it really does come down to the actual individual. Looking at things like actually your body composition, of course, as well, your goals, your relationship with your food, with your own body, because realistically, if your relationship with your food is not in the best position, then it's probably not sensible to go into a cutting phase. As vague as that kind of obviously response is, apologies, I would say that's obviously the most important factor. It really does come down to the individual. Maybe if you have got a slightly higher body fat percentage, it might be worth considering going to a kind of fat loss phase to begin with, to kind of set yourself up to be in a very good starting position for that growing phase. So if I look at myself as an example, this obviously growing phase, I started in a leaner position. Obviously I'd been through my cutting phase, then obviously maintenance phases. So I was in a good position to kind of slowly kind of start pushing calories up. Realistically, it's very person dependent. It depends on a good few factors there. It's very hard for myself to sit here and say, yes, you should do this, for example, but I would say it just comes down to the relationship with food, relationship with the body, previous history of kind of training, etc, etc. Final question, wanting more muscle mass on legs. I honestly could touch on this for days. First things first, looking at your kind of training split, looking at your training program. So as an example, right now with your kind of training program, you want to make sure it's actually personalized to you and your goals. So as an example for myself, my goal right now is to build my legs. So what I'm doing is I've got a glute and hamstring day. I then have a full upper day. I then have a quad and glute day, which is today. RIP me, I'm not looking forward to it. And then my last day is posterior chain. To clarify, posterior chain basically means the back of the body. So thinking about things like my rear delt, like my back, for example, my glutes, my hamstrings, etc. As you can kind of see there, like I'm hitting my glutes a good couple of times across the week. That would be my first point, looking at actually your training, where your training split is at, to obviously make sure it's aligning with that goal. Of course, it depends how many days you train per week. If you train 3 days, it might be worth considering 2 leg days, 1 upper body day. If you train 4 days, lower upper, or you could do obviously similar to myself with kind of your actual split, so lower upper, lower posterior chain. Secondly, your nutrition. Make sure you're having that high protein diet, you're eating enough food. As I say to you guys, I must have said this 1,000 times, being in a calorie deficit will not align with your goal if you're wanting to build muscle mass. I would also say, just as a reminder, more isn't always best. I think that's very, very important to note. What you'll see a lot of the time is individuals going crazy hard on their legs, which honestly is not going to help if your training intensity is not there. I honestly couldn't think of anything worse than training legs 4 days a week. That just sounds disgusting to myself. And I think the biggest thing, look, patience. You guys can see it yourself. This is my transformation from 12 weeks. I've gained 2 kilograms in a surplus. Does it look any different? Maybe a small smidgen, but being realistic, it's not that big of a difference. Making sure actually you're being aware of the time frame and setting a realistic time frame is very, very, very important. I would say that they're my 3 top tips. There's so much to consider there when it comes to training intensity, when it comes to obviously volume of your kind of sessions, your of course my training program, your nutrition, obviously eating enough, a high protein diet, diet, for example, recovery, of course, looking at your kind of time. I would also as well say data, just as one final point, like make sure you're actually collecting data, not just relying solely on the actual scale weight, like looking at other factors as well. Like photos are very, very, very important. And looking at measurements as well, for example, looking at how clothes are fitting and actually how you're feeling. And of course, when you're thinking about progress, don't just think about the number on the scale, like look at the bigger picture, look at other variables as well. And that's really important, okay? So honestly, building muscle takes a very long time. Putting muscle on these bad boys feels like it's a bloody hard work, and it is hard work, I can promise you that. We all look completely different. I think that's really obviously important to remember. Obviously different heights, different genetics, different bodies, different backgrounds, everything, okay? Different times that you have available for yourself. Like, it's so important to remember that, okay? So keep at it, keep patient, keep that high protein diet, keep pushing in those sessions, making sure that form's on point. Again, progressive overload. That is one important one that I always forgot to say there. That progressive overload, which we were referring to earlier as well, is very, very, very important. And there we have it, guys. That is my sit down Q&A. I hope it has helped. Big reminder, please make sure you go and join my broadcast channel. That's where I'm kind of running through obviously Q&As, tips, advice, etc. My long-term goal, I would actually say, is to do some kind of like meetup, maybe kind of start of next year. So let me know if that's any of interest, like if you guys would be up for that. I don't know, like I wanted to just connect more of you guys. Like it's something that I really, really want to do. So I hope obviously you enjoyed the video. Any suggestions for future videos, obviously pop them down below. But otherwise, please remember the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you next Sunday at 6 p.m.